So yes, anyway, after high school I went to Stellenbosch University, which is a town right here. So this is not part of Cape Town itself. If we just click on Cape Town, you can see the city border is right there. So Stellenbosch is its own town. I think it's actually, well, it's part of a bigger municipality here. I think this is the Overberg municipality. But the town itself is this strange kind of butterfly shape, or at least the town municipal area. But Stellenbosch is well known for its university, which we can see there. Stellenbosch is a university town. Now, of course, it's not just all about the university, but that is probably the best known part of the town. And if we just look a bit closer here, you can actually see the university buildings, because they have these orange kind of roofs here. And that's the older buildings. You do get more up-to-date ones like this one here, which is the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, where I attended most of my classes anyway. And if we have a look, very interesting, because I also have fond memories of that. If we just go back to a street view, right across the road from the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences is another American embassy. McDonald's, of course. I can't remember if that was 24 hours. I think it was. Yes, it was actually, because I remember we had very late night essay writing sessions in the computer lab of this building here, which is situated towards the front, and that is open 24 hours. And we were, of course, cramming our essays the night before they were due, and then we would run over to McDonald's to get sustenance. Anyway, that's, I guess, a typical kind of student experience. But I guess if you really want to see a nice part of this university campus, then the kind of main university road would be Victoria Road, which runs right down here. You can see also it has a lot of trees, whereas this main road doesn't have as many. So this is a road I walk down every single day for years and years. So I do again have fond memories of this. And this is the building actually where my mother had her classes. She studied accounting way back in the day, but I think they moved that faculty somewhere else. But anyway, so this is the kind of view that you get from the ground. You walk down this path here, and of course it's a very lovely thing in summer especially. And again, we can just jump these small steps forward, but at least it gives you a kind of idea of generally the atmosphere on the campus. But anyway, it doesn't say anything about the wild drinking that went on, so much that I remember tales from a friend of mine that in the ladies' dorms they would vomit into the trash cans because they were drinking so much. But anyway, that's a whole other story. I myself never really drank, and I still don't. I don't know, sometimes I'll have a glass or two of red wine, something like that, but I don't know. If you really love drinking, then this is a town for you, because it's surrounded by vineyards, and of course the wine is quite cheap, especially compared to foreign prices perhaps, and so you can really enjoy yourself here, which is not really good for your studies. But anyway, so you can see the university library is actually built underground, 2 floors underground. So I always had in mind, if there's a nuclear war, that's a good place to run, and you will have lots of reading material, but of course no food. But anyway, that's somewhere to go. And we called this Red Square right here. And yes, so that was that. Let's have a look. What else can I show you here? Of course, there's Robben Island, where Nelson Mandela and many other political prisoners were held for many, many years. There's the prison itself. You can see there's a museum there today. I've never actually visited that, and one of the reasons is because the whole ferry system is not the most reliable thing. They take you there by boat, but the thing is broken most of the time, and anyway. But if you go on a tour, you know, it's one of those things, other people have also mentioned this. If you live in a place, you don't tend to go on the kind of touristy sort of trips. And if you're in another city, then you tend to do that. But when you're at home, you don't necessarily do that. But it is still something that I need to do at some point. And yes, so there's not much else going on Robben Island. There was, of course, accommodation for the people working in the prison and, of course, manning the docks and all that sort of thing. But today, of course, that's for the museum. And let's see, what else could we look at? So anyway, if you leave Cape Town itself, which is this kind of between two mountain ranges, the one here on the left and the one on the right, then this kind of area is the Boland, which is literally upper land or upper country, and that's because it's at the foothills of the mountains. And that also includes the town where my dad grew up, Franschhoek. So if we click on that, it should give us another outline. So it actually includes this giant part of the mountain as well, but the town is right here. Now, Franschhoek back in the day when he grew up there was a very different place compared to how it is today. Today it's more like a kind of a boutique, upmarket kind of town, again centered on the wine and all of that. But back in the 1950s it was just another kind of rural town. So these days the property prices here are also insane. But let's just jump down here and we can just have a look from street view again. What does it look like here? You also find a lot of French themed things here, and that's because French settlers, especially Huguenots, settled in this valley, which you can see is surrounded by mountains on three sides. So yes, let's jump around here. We'll just have a look a little bit again now. It's going to be slow going. So you'll generally find a kind of more boutique stores here and restaurants and things like that. Lots of gift shops and things like that as well. So if you are again on a tour or something, this would be a nice place to visit. Leather shops and art galleries and all things like that, diamond works, etc. So yes, this is especially nice in autumn, as you can see. Now this says just 2019 Google, so I'm not sure what the date was when this photo was taken. Let's see, Spaarwater, no something, etc. But yes, this is just to save water, so this must have been a generally recent photo because of our water problems lately, our water shortages and so on. But yes, a nice place to visit right here. And if we just zoom back out, I still have an aunt living there. We can actually now visit where my mother grew up, but just before we do that, we can see here is basically one of the major dams that serves Cape Town, the Theewaterskloof Dam. And now it's quite difficult again to gauge when this satellite image was taken, but this winter we've had much better rain than in previous years, so it is a lot fuller now, which is a very, very good thing. But yes, that's one of them. We're all twisted here. Just go back north facing. There's another one down here, the Steenbras Dam, again in the mountains. And Brandvlei Dam is right here. And what is this one? Voelvlei, that's another dam that we get water from. And I'm not sure if there are others. I'm sure there are smaller ones dotted around the place. But anyway, that's the main kind of dams. What's this? Oh, that's a lagoon there. So yes, that's the Western Cape in general. It goes all the way down here. You see there's like an arm of the province. We can just search for that again. Now this is not like states in the USA. So they don't have as much autonomy on their own as the individual American states would have, but they do have some kind of authority over education and sort of general things like that. But anyway, here you can see sort of this arm going off into the desert there, and another kind of small arm going into the south. Now this part down here is called the Garden Route, and this is, I would highly recommend, if you ever did visit South Africa, then this is a place to go, because this is basically where you find the only natural forests that we have. We're not really, as you can see, South Africa is a very dry country in general, but we do have some really old growth forests in the south. And this area does generally get more rain throughout the year. It gets the rain from the west. You can see it has changed a little bit, so I guess this is an up-to-date weather map. But anyway, so the cold fronts that sweep in from the west, they do go past the south there, and also the rain in the summer from the north comes down the coast here and sometimes does reach the Garden Route. So some of the famous places there are George. George is the largest town in the Garden Route, if I'm not mistaken, and they also have an airport there, so it's a place to fly into. We should be able to see the airport right there. So there it is. Then another nice place, Wilderness. Wilderness is a super nice place to visit. I would very much recommend that. The last time I was there on holiday, I really enjoyed it. So this is certainly a nice place. Let's just drop down here. I'll show you the kind of place that it is. Let's go onto the bridge. It's a very small town. Again, super crazy property prices. But this is what it looks like. This very green, nice area, right by the sea, and just generally very nice. So there you go. And we can just zoom out again. Then other towns along this Garden Route are, let's just see, Knysna. Knysna is a very big one as well, and Knysna is actually quite famous for its lagoon. So the water, of course, comes right in here, and then you have the lagoon that actually covers this whole area. So we should zoom out. You can't see it nicely because it looks kind of green here, but this whole area is a lagoon, and it goes all the way up. So again, water sports is famous here if you want to go canoeing and all sorts of things like that. So the main part of Knysna is right here. And then you get an island, Thessens Island. This is another kind of upmarket area. And an older one, Leisure Island. So this is a bit kind of older homes, but still very upmarket. A lot of holiday homes are here. So if we just jump down to a random place here, we can see. So yes, so that's what this looks like, the lagoon, and again a very holiday kind of atmosphere. Holiday homes being built and broken down, stuff like that. And also because it has a very pleasant climate, it never gets too crazy hot or cold here in the Garden Route. So actually I think the Garden Route has one of the mildest climates in the whole world. I think it's the second mildest climate after Hawaii. I'm just doing a kind of a random search. Lima, Peru. No, that's not the one that I saw. One of the mildest climates in the world. Second only to Hawaii, the Garden Route is acclaimed for having one of the mildest climates in the world. So second to Hawaii, they say. But anyway, don't know how true that is, but it is quite true, I would say. It's a very nice mild climate. Another famous town on the Garden Route is Plettenberg Bay, which you can also visit there. There's an elephant sanctuary here as well. I have visited that before. There's also other kind of places. Now I just have to think, where do we find them? You get the elephant park, but you also get a world of birds and a monkeyland sanctuary where you can see all kinds of monkeys. Let's just search correctly. Garden Route. Images. So yes, you can see all kinds of things there. It's a really interesting place, again in the forest, so that's what makes it so nice. It's in the crags, as they call it, and that's also where you can find the world of birds, which is a very large enclosed area where you can find all sorts of bird species and so on. Is it called the world of birds? That's it. It's like this. Birds of Eden. That's right. That's what they call it. So you see it has this giant net over the whole complex, and then you can walk around with the birds inside. Just search that. So you'll also find parrots there, macaws and things. I suppose these were donated birds, but at least they're living a very nice life there. Because it's like this, there you can see it's a large netted area with a forest inside and lakes and rivers and waterfalls and all kind of things like that. So a very nice place. Now if we just go further down the road, we find Nature's Valley, and I have camped here as well before. Not in the gaming sense, but anyway. So there's Monkeyland actually, so it's close to this. And this is where you find one of the big forest reserves as well. Garden Route National Park. I want to see if they'll show it on the map. No, they don't. They just put a pin there. But anyway, so this is surrounded by lots and lots of forest. So if we can jump down here, we should see it. Obviously we see the forest, but I mean a closer view with the river again. Okay, and we're inside it. Maybe this is a better one than I thought. Anyway, so this is one of the walking routes there. I've also gone on that. For some reason, it's probably a person that they blurred out. But yes, so you see it there. It's a very nice place. And I like this. I have to say, this is kind of my favorite kind of, I say kind of a lot, but anyway. Climate with forest and river and ocean all coming together in one place. So one of my favorite memories as a child is going to some of these places and canoeing, since especially in the urban suburban kind of area you don't have that. So there you see one of the roads going through the forest as well. Nature's Valley. Yep, so that's that. Right, let's zoom back out again, just north. I always wanted north, but you don't always have to do it. Actually, when I lived in Australia, I had a map that had south at the top. Okay, that's not quite what I had in mind. What do you call something like that? Yes, like this, exactly like this. So again, it shows you that it's sort of arbitrary that north should always be on the top, and this also helps to remove that kind of northern centric worldview more towards the south, which is nice for me living in South Africa. It's now lots of stuff here. It's probably going into the history of why north is at the top on world maps. But yes, so living in South Africa, it was kind of like this with Australia in the middle, but then again South Africa is also more towards the top, so I like that kind of thing. I should get me one of those. It was lost somewhere along the way when I moved back to South Africa. So yes, the garden route goes probably generally towards Port Elizabeth, but then you get more towards the Wild Coast area. So that also takes us towards, well, this is not to the garden route itself, but where my mother was born and where she grew up, it was inland from there in the desert area, Aberdeen, not the one in Scotland. Unfortunately, we can't actually see a street view. I have tried to look for that before, but it's a very small rural town here in a very dry place. But I do have fond memories of visiting my grandmother there as a child. So Aberdeen, and we can just get this close, no closer than this, because the main road actually goes around the town or past the town. And so yes, that's where it is, and you can see the kind of climate that this has. This is more a sheep farming kind of world. probably quite similar to a lot of how Australia looks, especially the outback. And yes, that's a good overview of South Africa in general. Let's go to the islands now. Let's not forget to do that. There they are. So those are our only 2 islands that we have, of course, apart from the local ones like Robben Island, which are just off the coast. So Marion Island and Prince Edward Island. And this is not the Canadian Prince Edward Island, of course, but this is also not open to the public. This is a kind of nature reserve that they have more for research purposes. And you can see somewhere on the coast there's a research station here, right here. And they send expeditions here every once in a while. So it's quite an unspoiled, wild place, which is nice. I wish I could hike around here one day, you know, just to see what it's like, because especially on Prince Edward Island, you're not going to find any other people, no trace of civilization whatsoever. It's a completely unspoiled, wild land. And that's what I love about the southern islands. I think it's the same for the French southern and Antarctic lands, like Kerguelen here. And to some extent also, of course, you have the Falklands and the Sandwich Islands, which sound delicious. So if we just go back to the islands, there they are. Again, it's this kind of, it's a very windswept, wild land. Now we even see this kind of crater here, which I thought was very interesting. But if we want to see some pictures of that, let's search Prince Edward Island. I have to add South Africa, otherwise we get the Canadian province. So yes, there's lots and lots of penguins and seals on those islands, but this is what it looks like. And you see it's a marine conservation area, but it's too cold and windswept for trees really, so you get this kind of fern and moss plant life all over the place, and very rocky, craggy coasts, and it just looks so nice, so remote, far away from the troubles of the world. Anyway, just a bit of kind of interesting knowledge there. Also, you might not know that South Africa has an outpost on Antarctica as well. So if we just go straight to the south, the expeditions actually leave from Cape Town on the Agulhas ship. I'm not sure if it's every single year. I think it probably is. But now let's see if we can find the base. It's along the mountain ranges. I should just search for it. It's called Sinai 4. So South African National Antarctic Expedition 4. So there were, I guess, 3 other bases before that. There it is. So this is built on a mountain kind of outcropping. And so it looks over the ice scapes of Antarctica. But it's an interesting kind of a base. Let's just look. Images. There, you can see it's on stilts like this. So this kind of orange and white series of bases. It almost reminds me a little bit of like a Martian base or something like that. An outpost on the moon. It's almost a good training, I would say, if you want to establish a permanent moon base or Mars base, to have something like this and to send your astronaut candidates for training, because it will prepare them for the isolation and for the sort of harsh terrain. Of course, you'll want to isolate the base completely from the outside world, but if something does go wrong, you can just open it so you can at least breathe there. Although you will freeze to death, but anyway. So that's that. Let's see if we go back again. Now this is quite far from the shore. So how exactly they get that far inland, I'm not sure. If they fly or if they... I guess they use some kind of vehicles, but anyway. Wait, is that how far it is? Let's just find the place again. Just want to be sure. I kind of lost the place there for a moment. So it's on that point to the coast. That's about 140 kilometers. That's quite far. If we turn this into miles, it's about 90 miles roughly from the coastline. It's interesting. It's quite isolated. But of course there are many other bases and outposts from other countries as well, including the American one, which is exactly on the South Pole. That's interesting. Something is happening here. Also, we can have a look, just for interest's sake, again at the territorial claims on Antarctica. Or let's just say claims. That's it. Small maps. I want to see a bigger one. Yes, we can just look here. So, of course, these claims are all frozen, pun intended, with the 1960 treaty, I believe, which dedicated the Antarctic continent solely to research and peaceful exploration, pretty much like space. Actually, there's a very close link to the kind of way that space is treated in law in terms of Antarctica as well. But you do have the claims here, like Norway. Australia claims a huge chunk here, with France getting a little sliver right here in the middle. New Zealand claims a huge chunk. Norway, of course, so the South African base is actually in the Norwegian claimed territory, but of course that's not an actual claim, it's just on paper at the moment. Then the UK, Argentina and Chile all argue about what parts they want. It all overlaps here. And then there's an unclaimed part that was under the Pacific Ocean. If we just go back to the north. So this part of Antarctica, because it was so remote, nobody ever actually got around to claiming it before the treaty put a freeze on it in 1960. So yes, anyway, but that's interesting. I see here's even a Brazilian Antarctic. Everybody claims a piece of it, but anyway. This will probably become a problem in the future if Antarctica starts to melt down and you actually start to have access to mineral resources on the land underneath. Then I'm sure everyone is going to start arguing about it. Claims if the frontage theory was universally blah blah blah. So this is if you kind of border it, then we should have one there. South Africa, if it was just about whose coastline pointed towards Antarctica, we would get that sliver. Does the USA then get one? Yes, they get this little part there. And this giant leap here. And another little sliver. Good grief. UK, etc., Australia and so on. But of course that's not an actual thing. Yes, let's see, is there anywhere else that we can go?